Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I don't know.
You don't know, yeah. I think we can all relate to that. So tell us what happened. What's been going on with you?
Oh, just hanging out in hospitals.
Yeah.
One Saturday morning in July, I woke up next to my beautiful wife and I had this splitting headache. And I got up and thought it was something. I went to the bathroom in my medicine cabinet, got some Oxy, which everybody in America has. and it didn't touch the pain. And the pain persisted, and I said it was like having a welding torch cut across my skull.
Oh.
And my dear bride, Vanda, she understood to take me to the emergency room. And that's when I learned I had a very severe stroke. What was interesting about it, though, is even in the midst of the pain, there was some kind of background awareness that was there as a steady support, even though. And so with this awareness, I could watch my brain go offline. I could watch the ability to tell the difference between night and day go offline, inability to make directions or find words go offline. And anyway, I was hospitalized, and then I had, I think, 4 more strokes in the next month. So I was back and forth to the hospital quite a lot. And so I've been learning a lot. Yeah, learning a lot.
And one of the things we talked about that I really want to hear you speak to is there anything that you used to say about sitting with other people suffering that you've now decided is bullshit based on what you've experienced?
Yeah. I mean, I tried not to bullshit people too much even then, but yeah, one thing was that we can take away all your pain. It took them 5 days to get my pain under control. I was in gut-wrenching pain for 5 days. But the other thing is, this is the real bullshit. It's no big deal. Like I remember once taking care of a guy with AIDS, and he reached for something on his bedside table and he knocked over his glass of milk onto the floor, and I said, "It's no big deal, we can clean it up." And he screamed at me, "It is a goddamn big deal!" Because every time, every experience like that touches one's vulnerability, reminds us of our limitations, helps us or causes us to see the fragility of our lives. It's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a really big deal.
Yeah. So that was a bullshit thing to say to people.
Can you say more about vulnerability? Because I think that's a word, particularly in our culture right now, that we throw around a lot.
Yeah.
But what does that actually come to mean for you through this experience?
Well, I agree. It's thrown around a lot. It's used all the time, but it's not very well defined. I mean, our dictionaries defined it as the susceptibility to being harmed, physically, emotionally, psychologically. Brene Brown, who's popularized the word vulnerability, speaks about it as uncertainty and the risk of emotional exposure. And I think there's wisdom in both those things, but I have a different experience of it. For me, vulnerability is not so much equated with weakness. I think when we equate it with weakness, what happens is we develop a kind of defensiveness. And then what happens is people confuse that defense with vulnerability. But vulnerability itself is, for me at least, open. And it feels porous. I just saw Lucy, and she'll remind us from our high school biology that the only thing I remember from it is this teaching on osmosis. How molecules move across semi-permeable membranes effortlessly, you know. Vulnerability is more like that. It's more like permeability. And it opens us. For me, it's one of the most beautiful human qualities. because it allows us the beauty and the horror of the world to impress itself on our hearts, on our psyches, on our souls. So for me, vulnerability is openness. And when people say that they're scared of being vulnerable, I think actually it's just the opposite. They're so defended, so guarded, that they're afraid that their defenses won't protect them. In healthcare, we do it all the time. We build some armoring around our hearts so that... and here's what happens with that. When we cut ourselves off from our fear, our grief, or these things, we also cut ourselves off from our capacity to love and be compassionate and empathetic and to know we belong.
Yeah.
So I don't think we can be free if we cut off any part of ourselves.
Right.
So vulnerability to me is inviting it all in. Everything.
Yeah.
All of it. I mean, the fact that some people are going to make love and other people will make war. That there are children being shot in our schools, and there are others who are speaking truth to power. That there's kids like my granddaughter making, tents out of couch pillows and bed sheets. And there are babies crying in refugee camps in Syria. And we got to let all that in. We have to let ourselves feel all of that. And I think this is the truth of vulnerability, is that it's connective,
How does one survive letting that all in, though? I think that's the fear, is like what you just articulated is enough to make me want to lie in a dark room for a long time.
It's not such a bad idea to do that once in a while. I've been doing a lot of that.
Yeah.
If we think that all we are is this personality or this brain, awareness can hold all this. And I'm not trying to be new agey. It's true. Awareness can hold all this. It doesn't need to push anything away. It's one of my greatest gratitudes, is that for 50 years I've practiced loving awareness.
Yeah.
And that discriminating wisdom could watch my brain go offline,
Right.
can help my brain to heal, can give me the capacity to withstand, tolerate, forbear what you're describing. So one of the ways I do it, Courtney, is I lie in bed at night and I think I'm alone and I'm scared. And I reflect on all the people who are lying in bed at night, alone, in pain. And while I might think it would upset us, in fact, it's this great source of strength for me. Because my innate compassion emerges and gives me the capacity to be with the suffering of our world.
That's beautiful.
So going toward that suffering, and it gives rise to compassion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think there's something, we've been talking a lot today about stories and putting language to things, and I think I notice in myself that there's a version of vulnerability that I practice which is actually very well crafted. It's like I'm going to tell you a hard thing that happened to me, and I have a really good way of telling you why it's so meaningful and redemptive.
Yeah.
But there's a version of vulnerability which I think is what you're speaking to, this true vulnerability, which is I don't have a story yet. I'm in the middle, and I'm inarticulate, and I'm confused, and I'm pissed, and I'm it's the messy, truly unformed, unperformative version of here I am.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and so we can't, I don't want to confuse that we're saying story.
No.
Story can actually be anti-vulnerable in its own way if it's too pretty.
Too constructed and
Yeah.
well put together, yes. I mean, sitting here right now, I don't know if I'll remember your question, or if I'll be able to find the words to give you an answer.
Mm-hmm.
That's a certain level of vulnerability, but that's the surface. That's just the surface. The real vulnerability is being human. And that's the great, it sounds corny maybe, but the great possibility, the great gift in illness for the person sick and his or her caregivers is that it pulls them into the deeper dimensions of what it means to be human.
Yeah.
And it causes us to have to deal with the paradoxes of this crazy human condition of ours, that we can embody fragility and strength at one moment, and that we can know absolute desperation and loneliness, and also feel ourselves in the family of all suffering beings.
Mm-hmm.
That we can know ourselves, we can feel ourselves to be beyond love, and also to know ourselves as nothing but love.
Mm.
Love isn't just an emotion, it's a support. When I came home from the hospital the first time, the home health people came, and I live on a houseboat, so they were freaked out. How are you going to get across that gangplank, and what about walking down those stairs? And
Not to mention that they were going to find you inside the boat, like
Yeah.
this man who sat by the bedside of so many people.
anyway, they were freaked out. And I one of the things that's happened with my stroke is that I've lost half my vision. So I can see you if I look at you, but if I look here, I can't see you.
Mm-hmm.
I can only see a very narrow field in front of me. And the nature of my stroke was that one of the things that it causes is a lack of impulse control, which I was actually very happy about. But they were very worried about. And so they said, you have to be careful on the stairs. And everybody was worried about my tumbling. And the next morning I stood at the top of the stairs, and I had to go down, and then suddenly I dropped into this kind of relaxed awareness. And at the bottom of the stairs, I saw an image of my son, who I loved so much. And I knew I had to be careful, because if I fell down those stairs, it would really harm him. And I didn't want to do that. So I made a vow to be really careful. And I can tell you, Courtney, that that love, it was just as stable as the handrail. And I could lean into it. And it protected me, supported me. Yeah.
What has felt most loving to you since this has happened? What kind of care and kind of witnessing and
Well,
accompanying?
my dear bride, Vanda, has been unbelievable in her care. Some people have been following it on Caring Bridge. She's also a very good writer. So when she can just be with me, and we wake up in the morning, and we were at Thanksgiving, and we walked around the house saying thank you to everything. Like, stuff we don't think about, like you turn on the tap of water and water comes out. I remember being in India years ago, and the village kids used to come to my hotel, and they were fascinated by the toilet and its capacity to flush, So we said thank you to the toilet, everything, because everything felt like it was freely given to us. And right now it feels everything is given. Yeah. So this feels like a kind of love, like that not just the care coming from friends or family, but the whole world is giving us all the time. And this is a great reminder to appreciate that.
Yeah. Do you think about what's next these days, or are you in such a present state that you don't even need to project?
Well, the initial few months of the stroke, I was kind of resting in what I would call a non-conceptual awareness. No thoughts, no anxiety, none. Now my brain has started to recover, and with that recovery comes perception, and with perception comes identity, and with identity comes anxiety. So sometimes I'm nostalgic for those early days. The doctors and the clinicians who I work with, they keep speaking to me about recovery.
Yeah.
And the brain's capacity for neuroplasticity and such. And I've actually found myself not so interested in that. I'm much more interested in discovery. What can I discover? This is now my new reality. What can I discover here? And I have this feeling that if I stay true to this path of integrity and love that we've been talking about here, I might not recover, but I will be amazed at what I discover on the way. So that's what's now and what's next. And maybe once in a while, trying to share what all this is teaching me with other people like this, because it's the way I serve the world.
Well, Frank, thank you for serving us today. Your presence here is such a gift.